All right, so we're gonna do a Washington State Class B pre-trip inspection. We're gonna go through the entire test from the beginning to the end. We're gonna start this test with our lights, which is what you're gonna do after you see the examiner and he completes your paperwork. We're gonna begin with lights. So I'm gonna tell you as the examiner which lights I need you to check for me to make sure that they're working properly. So let's get started. All right, so the front of the truck, the first thing we're gonna check is our overhead clearance lights. Are they working? High and low beam. Good? Left turn signal. Right turn signal. Four-way flashers. All right, we're gonna go to the rear of the truck. Overhead clearance lights. Left turn signal. Right turn signal. Four-way flashers. And brake light. All right, go ahead and get inside the truck and we'll begin our next test. Okay, for the next test, we're going to do our air systems check. And the way we're going to do this test is we're going to start with our pressure below 90 psi to demonstrate that our air governor cuts in below 90 psi. We are in fact below 90 psi, so I'm ready to begin my test. I'm going to start with a safety start. I can see that my needle is climbing, and that tells me that my gauge is working properly and we are cut in and we're building pressure. I'm going to speed the process up. Now I'm looking for my governor to cut out between 120 and 140 psi, and I will indicate where that happens. Air dryer, the governor cut out at 120 psi. So my governors are working properly. So I'm going to set up for my next test, which is going to be my applied brake pressure test. So I'm going to set that up by putting the truck into low gear. I'm going to release my brakes. I'm going to shut the truck off. Key back on. My brakes are released. My key is on. All right, so for this test, I'm going to hold my brake pedal and I will not lose more than 3 psi in 1 minute in a single vehicle. All right, I'm beginning this test at 100 psi and I'm starting the test now. Setting my timer for 1 minute and we're off. All right, so we're gonna simulate that it's been 1 minute. My timer's going off, beep, beep, beep. And I can see that I did not lose any PSI. I'm still at 100 PSI. So our applied brake pressure test is working properly. All right, the next test is gonna be our low air warning indicator. So I'm gonna fan my brakes down until my low air warning light comes on the dash or the buzzer. That should happen at or above 55 PSI. So we're gonna start fanning the brakes down now. At or above 55. There's my low air warning light, and that activated at 65 PSI. So my low air warning light is working properly. The next test I'm going to do is my tractor protection valve, or basically I just need to make sure that my parking brake valve pops out. That'll happen between 20 and 40 PSI. So I'm going to continue to fan my brakes until it pops out, and I'll indicate when that happens. I'm not going to touch it, and I'm just going to watch the gauge until it pops out. All right, my valve popped out at 30 PSI. Everything's working properly, and that concludes the air systems check. Now I'm going to do a safety start, and while my air pressure is building, I am going to do an in-cab inspection. So safety start. All right, I'm going to start this inspection with my seat belt. My seat belt is securely mounted on both ends. It latches properly. The condition, it's not cut, ripped, torn, or frayed, and it's adjusted properly for me. Next, I'm going to do my glass. That'll be my side windows, my mirrors, and my windshield glass. Everything is securely mounted. It's not cracked, broken, or damaged. There's no illegal stickers to impede my vision. And all my glass is clean and clear. Next, I'm going to make sure that my side windows roll up and down properly and smooth. My mirror brackets, they're all securely mounted. They're not bent, broken, cracked, or damaged. Not missing any brackets. And my mirrors are adjusted properly for me. All right, next I'm going to do my wipers. First, I'm going to demonstrate that my wipers and washer fluid work properly. Looks good. I could use washer fluid if I need it. And I'm going to look that my wiper blades and my wiper arms are securely mounted. They're not bent, broken, cracked, or damaged. I'm not missing any of the wiper blades. And moving on from there, we're going to do the heater defroster. I want to make sure that everything works, so it's on high. We're on the defrost setting, full hot, and we're defrosting. Next thing I'm going to check is my horn. I have to either have an air horn or a city horn. City horn works. All right, next I'm going to do my gauges. I'm going to start with my oil pressure gauge right here. I want to make sure that it's working properly, it's building to an adequate range, and there's no warning lights on the dash. My water temperature gauge, it's working properly, it's building to an adequate range, and there's no warning lights on the dash. My volts gauge is working properly, it's building and charging at an adequate range, and there's no warning lights on the dash. This truck is equipped with ABS. And when I turned the key on, I could see that the ABS light turned on and then went off. That indicates that it's working properly. I have no warning lights on the dash. Next, I'm going to do all of my dash indicators. I'm going to do my, I'll do my high and low beam indicator. Works. I'm going to do my left turn signal, my right turn signal, my four-way flashers. All my indicators work properly. All right. Let's see here. I think next we will go ahead and do our safety equipment. So I have down here a properly rated and charged fire extinguisher that is securely mounted. It's not damaged and it's not missing. I have 3 reflective triangles over there. They are securely mounted, they're not damaged, and they're not missing. And I have 6 spare fuses in the compartment. Take a moment to make sure I didn't miss anything on my in-cab inspection. All right. That concludes my in-cab inspection. Now the last thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to do my brake checks. So I'm going to test that my parking brake works, and I'm going to test that my service brakes are working properly. So looks like we're ready to go. We got good air pressure. So what I'm gonna do now is put it in low gear. I'm gonna release, no, I'm not gonna release my brakes. I'm gonna test my parking brake first. So I'm gonna leave my parking brake set and I'm gonna tug against it to make sure that the parking brake holds. Okay, I can feel it and it was holding good. So my parking brake works. Now I'm gonna release my parking brake. I'm gonna pull forward one or 2 feet, both hands on the wheel, and apply my service brakes. If my steering wheel pulls left or right, that means that I have brakes that are out of adjustment. So release my brakes. I'm in low gear. I'm gonna pull forward a foot or 2. And straighten my wheel out first. Now I want to pull forward. Brake gently. It did not pull, so my brakes are all adjusted good. All right, shut the truck down. We're gonna exit and we're gonna do our exterior pre-trip inspection. We're gonna have 3 points of contact when we exit the truck, facing the truck. Okay, for my exterior pre-trip inspection, I'm gonna begin by starting with the front of the truck. That's gonna be my first system. So the front of the truck, I've got 3 L's, lights, leans, and leaks. So I'll start with my lights. So all of my lights, lenses, and reflectors on the front of the truck. First of all, they're gonna be amber in color. And I wanna make sure that all my lights, lenses, and reflectors are securely mounted. They're not cracked, damaged, or missing. They're all working properly, and they're all clean. My headlights in particular, I'll inspect the same, but I want to note that they're clean and they're clear. The next thing, I'm going to check for leaks. I want to make sure that there's no puddles or fluids leaking under the engine or the truck anywhere. The next thing is going to be leans. I want to make sure that the truck is not leaning from side to side. That would indicate a suspension problem or possibly a low tire. So that covers the front of the truck. The next system I'm gonna do, even though there's no particular order in this, I'm gonna choose to do my exhaust system. My exhaust system is here. I wanna make sure that the entire exhaust system is securely mounted. It's not bent, broken, cracked, or damaged. The clamps are secure and tight, and they're not leaking. I would know that if my exhaust was leaking because it would have soot trails or rust trails. So that covers my exhaust system. All right, next system I'm gonna do is my fluid. So I'm gonna pop my hood. I've already got it unlatched. And we're gonna find each fluid on this truck. So we're gonna go driver's side. I'm gonna start with my oil fluid. I'm gonna check my oil with the dipstick, and I'll make sure that it's at an adequate range above the fill mark. Next is gonna be my power steering fluid here. I'm also gonna check it with the dipstick. It's at an adequate range above the fill mark. Next, we're gonna go to the other side and do our coolant. I wanna make sure that the coolant level, I can check it through the sight glass to be at an adequate level. If I don't have a sight glass, I can remove the radiator cap if the engine's turned off and it's cool, and I can make sure that it's at an adequate level that way. For my fourth fluid, I'm gonna do my fuel tank. I wanna make sure my fuel tank is securely mounted, it's not damaged, it's not leaking. My cap is secure, it's tight, and it's not leaking. From there, we're gonna do our engine components. We got the alternator located here. The alternator is securely mounted. It's not damaged. It works properly. Our electrical wires on the back are securely fastened, and the alternator is belt driven. So I'm gonna inspect all my belts on my engine to make sure that they're not cracked, broken, no loose fibers, and not excessively worn. And I'll check the tightness of my belts by making sure that I have between 1/2 of an inch to 3/4 of an inch of deflection when I move it by hand. Not too loose, not too tight. Next, I'm gonna do the rest of my engine pumps. So my water pump is located below the alternator. I wanna make sure it's securely mounted, not damaged, not leaking, works properly, and it's gear driven. We'll go around to the other side of the truck. I'm gonna check my air compressor pump located here. I wanna make sure that it's securely mounted, it's not damaged, it's not leaking, it works properly, and it's also gear driven. My power steering pump is located right behind the air compressor. It's on the same gear actually on this truck. My power steering pump is also securely mounted, not damaged, not leaking. It works properly and it's gear driven. All right, the last thing I want to talk about for my engine area is all of my engine hoses. I want to make sure that they're all secure, they're not damaged, and they're not leaking. From there, we're going to do our steer axle, all of our systems on here. So I'll leave the hood up for this so we can see it. I'm going to start with my suspension system. My leaf spring hangers, they're securely mounted. They're not bent, broken, cracked, damaged. No missing nuts or bolts. Securely mounted. Sometimes you have to ask yourself, did I already say that or not? My bushings connected to that. The hanger bushings are securely mounted. They're not damaged. They're not missing. The leaf springs, they're securely mounted on both ends. They're not bent, broken, cracked, damaged, twisted, or missing. From there, we go to our U-bolts. U-bolts are securely mounted. They're not damaged. They're not missing. From there, we will go to our shock absorber. Shock absorber is securely mounted. It's not damaged. It's not leaking. Let's see. We'll go to the next system, steering system. I'm going to inspect the steering from the steering wheel. Actually, let me start over. I'm going to inspect all of my arms, links, sockets, and joints from the steering wheel to the wheel. I want to make sure that everything is securely mounted, not bent, broken, cracked, or damaged. My sockets and joints are not loose or worn. I'll even throw in for extra credit that everything's properly lubricated. From there, I want to do my steering gearbox. Steering gearbox is securely mounted to the frame. It's not bent, broken, cracked, or damaged. It's also not leaking. And I have no loose or missing nuts and bolts or cotter pins in my steering system. My steering gearbox, the hose, even though I mentioned it earlier, I want to be sure to note that my hose for the steering gearbox is secure. It's not damaged. It's not leaking. All right, we're going to do the brake system. We're going to pair everything together, and we're going to start at the beginning. So our hoses and fittings, they're secure. They're not cracked, damaged, or missing, not leaking specifically. I will also note that our brake hose supplies air to the brake chamber. So that moves me to the brake chamber and clamps. I call it the brake can and clamps. Everything is securely mounted, not bent, broken, cracked, damaged, not dented, and no missing clamps. Next, we got our push rod and slack adjuster here. Everything is secure, also not bent, broken, cracked, or damaged. No missing parts or pins. And I would know that my brakes were out of adjustment. The way I would check that is with my brakes released, or in this case, since we don't have spring brakes on the front axle here, I will make sure that I have less than 1 inch of play when I pull my push rod by hand. It has to be less than 1 inch. All right, so